Sigo, welcome to Let's Talk Native on this Tuesday, June 18th. While this program may not provide a path to spiritual enlightenment, we do encourage and sometimes we start conversations. We don't do prayers or buffalo speeches. We take a tough look at history, oppression, and survival. We talk about culture, the arts, politics, and identity. And we may step on a few toes along the way. But our real goal here is to bring people together by breaking down what separates us. We'll take on the false narratives and provide critical thinking to all that is heaped upon us. And we do it all right here from the Cattaraugus territory of the Seneca Nation. So let's talk Native. But first, let me remind people that we not only broadcast this show live on our website, letstalknative.com. We are streaming live on Facebook Live. We take the audio and we put it up on SoundCloud, which not only makes it available there, but also puts it out as on the RSS feed. So we're on all your favorite podcasts platforms. So you can catch us as a podcast. We take the video and then we put it up on our YouTube channel, which is Let's Talk Native TV. And there you can watch this show. Oftentimes, people sometimes Facebook can be a little bit choppy, but the best viewing is really on our YouTube channel. So check us out there. And of course, we do post other videos on our YouTube channel, not just our shows. We do some of these short form videos, not the least of which is the last one that I did. Jake and I put together a great video on the doctrine of discovery and, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's role in promoting and embracing the doctrine of discovery. So check that out. That's the one that got me put in Facebook jail for 24 hours because it dawned on me just yesterday. Essentially, I got, and this has been happening a lot to me lately, I got pulled over for speeding by Facebook, and I was posting too fast, and that's what they said. So I actually got punished for speeding on Facebook. Yes, they said I posted to too many pages too quickly. Yeah, go figure, right? All right. Well, I'm the host of this show, and I'm joined in studio by Jake Proud, who is managing our video and our sound. And I say that not to blame him. I'm trying to give him credit. We've been struggling a little bit as of late. We're trying to do some new things. If you're watching this show, you may have seen over my left shoulder we have we've added a video screen, and in doing so, we're hoping that this will not only be a feature for us to maybe show a little bit more. Perhaps we can have people join us by video conference. We know that when we're talking about different subjects, we can post up images, so it'll be a little bit more relevant to what we're doing here. So that's our latest edition. We're still getting some of the bugs out in terms of how we put images up there. So that's one of the things that we're working on. As promised last show, which we tried to do this, I was trying to have Michelle Elise Burnett join us last week, but we had to start an hour late, and that gets pretty late into the evening. So we do have Michelle Elise Burnett joining us today to talk about what's coming up this weekend, which is the Strawberry Moon Festival at the Art Park Amphitheater in Lewiston. So let me welcome Michelle Elise Burnett to Let's Talk Native. Michelle, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be on air with you tonight, John. So Sego and Annie. Strawberry Moon Festival. It's been over 40 years since there has been any Indigenous or Native programming at the Art Park. Can you believe that?
No, that is hard to believe. I mean, obviously, Art Park is kind of a fairly recognizable institution in Western New York, and it's actually amazing that we've been excluded. And you're doing it in big fashion this time. I mean, so you've got some interesting names, and not the least of which is your headliner with a tribe called Red. In fact, we should play that during the break. We were scrambling so much to try to get started. I don't know if you caught the song in the beginning. This is somebody that would be interesting to consider for the future. That was Jeff Doreen, who does Mohawk or does Beatles tunes in Mohawk.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a language.
I know. I was listening to that.
He's a language instructor in Ontario, and he's going to join me in New York at the end of this month. He performs Beatles tunes in Mohawk. He is accompanied by Laura Kuji, who is an Anishinaabe. She's a poet. So she does some spoken word, pieces with Jeff playing background or backup for him, and then she sings backup for Jeff when he does his tunes. So that's an interesting. It's a unique experience because we know all the lyrics, right? We know all the lyrics to Beatles tunes. So when we hear these songs sung in the language, we can automatically connect them, and so it's kind of a neat thing. He actually uses it he uses it to some extent. It's not a lesson planner, but it helps him address not only the relevance of being able to communicate something like a lyrical song in Mohawk, but it makes it easy for people to make the connection. I mean, when we say "Gunarunkwa," which means "I love you," loosely. Uh, I've become more familiar with that expression because of Jeff singing "I love you, yeah, yeah," So anyway, enough about Jeff Doreen. I did want to introduce this song because we opened up the show with it. But talk to me
No,
about
it
the
was a
performers.
fabulous. It was a fabulous song, and you just got me thinking the importance of language,
Absolutely.
and if we're able to empower and to have our youth start to speak the language, but even music is a wonderful ambassador for teaching and for keeping our culture alive and well. Whether it's interpreting Beatles songs, which everyone knows globally and is adored and loved, I mean, it's one way to really engage our youth and, of course, ourselves. Like you said, you now know how to say "I love you" so loosely.
Well, it's interesting because Jeff early on one of the songs that he translated was Blackbird, and has done
Hmm.
and so it was really one of the first ones that he did, and so he's done that a number of times. There's a couple of YouTube videos. He did that on my show. We did we had we have a good recording of it that he did in studio for my show in New York. Interestingly enough, a Mi'kmaq woman
Hmm.
recorded that just recently, and it went viral,
Viral.
and Paul McCartney actually made a reference to it on while he was on tour. I mean, so it got back to him, and the whole idea that that this Native woman did essentially what Jeff did, had this song translated into Mi'kmaq and performed it. I mean, this, but you're right. This kind of shows the importance and the significance and the power of language, because it ends up, reaching. I mean, reaching all the way around, to some of the artists. I mean, Jeff Doreen actually did a Dave Matthews song, and I have a kind of a end around connection to the Dave Matthews Band because of a friend of mine who is the stepmother to the bass player for Dave Matthews. So I got him connected to Dave Matthews. So, but it's kind of an interesting way the whole thing plays out. But um,
Hmm.
and what you're doing in terms of finally putting a native event together for the art park is phenomenal. Talk to me a little bit about who you've got and well, first start off with the performers, then we'll talk about how you got there.
Okay, that's a really good place to start. We're very excited this year. You mentioned that we have the Tribe Called Red that will be closing out the show, and I understand Bear is from Buffalo originally before he moved up to Six Nations. So it's a wonderful tribute to have him back in Buffalo and to perform or in Western New York. So very excited that he's coming back home. But we also have, and what was interesting is that Art Park was kind of looking at it saying, let's kind of, introduce people to the Native American culture, music, as well as the Canadian culture and music. So they invited the Sam Roberts Band and Alan Doyle
Mm-hmm.
to also join a Tribe Called Red on stage. And that about a month and a half ago, we added Thunderhand Joe in the Medicine Show. Of course, everyone remembers Redbone.
Mm-hmm.
Come and Get Your Love. I mean, I still can't stop dancing whenever that song comes on.
Well, Guardians of the
So he'll
Galaxy
be
kind of gave that song some new life. with a lot of those other '80s
Yeah.
tunes. But yeah, so when you start putting songs on one of these the MCU, the Marvel Cinema Universe, that's the one way to kind of remind people of the song. So and it certainly did that.
Well, you bring up a really good point. Is that a lot of people don't realize the significant contribution that Native people have had to the music industry right from get go. When we can go all the way back to Mildred Bailey and
Sure.
Link Ray and
Well, have you seen
Jimi Hendrix.
have you seen the movie Rumble?
Of course, I have.
Okay.
Actually, my colleague is Tim Johnson, who's executive producer,
Oh, there you
and
go. Yeah.
we just recently we've been on tour with Rumble the concert. We did a whole month in Canada. We did a 5-city tour with that. So um, we have one more coming up on the 29th at in Niagara Falls.
We
Overlooking the
screened the
falls.
film in New York. Well, actually, both way out in Huntington, Long Island, and in Brooklyn. We screened the film, and it really took people aback. Again, people
Hmm.
who had no idea what the Native connection. Not only do they not realize, who of these artists, were Native in the first place. When you start playing the guitar lick to the Jackson Browne "Doctor My Eyes" and you realize that's
Oh,
Jesse Davis doing something,
oh,
totally off the cuff. These are the kinds of things that really start to send a message to people that they don't understand that. You look, we understand the influence of the black influence in what has become rock and roll, but
hmm.
there's very few people who've realized the connection between Native people and black people, as the various genres of music, as you mentioned, Mildred Bailey and others, who again have had impact in not just rock and roll, not just blues, not just folk, but it goes across the board.
Pop culture.
Yeah,
I
there you go.
mean,
Yeah.
we had a whole movement, just even to fashion and everything else. And it's time for us to finally get the recognition, the respect, and the honor that I think that our ancestors deserve and that our people deserve. And you know, and this is one way of educating the mass public about the deep-rooted beauty of our cultures, our traditions, our heritage, and to help them understand who we were uh, before Western or before colonization, uh, what we've gone through since they've come here, and who we are today, and being a product of that environment that they've imposed upon us. But let's go back to what we've contributed. I mean, it is so significant, and the music. That's why I'm so excited about Strawberry Moon Festival, because
Sure.
we are bringing people together, all different cultures, and to Art Park after 40 years. I was a child. I remember that powwow, that last one, uh, and it's exciting. I've been hounding them for the last few years, saying, "Can we have a native like event here? Can we have a native event?" And I had Alan Jameson come down with me. I had Gary Parker come down with me. We sat there for the last 5 or 6 years.
Well, I'm a
So,
pretty big mouth. You
um,
ever need somebody to make a bunch of noise? By all means, don't leave me out of the mix. I can bully with the best of them when I have to. So, but the one thing I want to mention, because based on what you were just saying, this isn't about us just adapting to this imposition, of colonialism. It really is
yeah.
about us. Taking something back and making sure that our voices and our instruments, the drum, I mean, with the power of the drum, all of that stuff, that we don't that we are not silenced. And so
Hmm.
I think sometimes people think this is all about assimilation, and it isn't, because if
Hmm.
anything, we're still affecting their culture. And people talk about the Columbian Exchange, and they always make it sound like it was a one-way street. And I think music is not about us adapting to them. It's about about conditioning them to understand and recognize who we are.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's it. And I think education is so key. And whatever way that one has to educate, well, let's educate, because the more that people know about us, the more they understand about us, the more that they see us in public, the more that they hear our voices, they hear our stories, they hear they witness and they participate in our traditions or in land-based teachings or workshops, or then the more they're going to understand who we are, and hopefully they'll have a better understanding of who we are and more respect for us, and understanding what the contributions that we have made and that we're continuing to make. And I think that's really important. And I think my goal in putting all these different events on is to educate, but it's to finally have us seeing, like, the African American. It was okay. It was even better at one point to be African American than it was to be Native.
Oh yeah,
It's pretty bad.
Well, and frankly, one of the things that still plagues some of our fine performers is that we can't break into the industry that is so dominated, by white executives, and frankly, even as we've had artists that have been phenomenal hip hop artists and folk, blues and folk and all that other stuff, it has been hard because we don't have the masses, of Native people to help propel an artist into commercial success. So and black artists, although they were very much exploited, they were able to use even that level of exploitation to carve it out for themselves. But unfortunately, we still have a lot of Native musicians who are left out of the cold of this stuff. And this is why Rumble was so important, because it kind of showed the connection and the outreach and almost trying to re-grasp that tide to not only between the Native influences on rock and roll, but the black influences and how they came together. So, I think music is one of those things that brings us together.
Yeah, and that's a baby step, and I know that it really is igniting also the young performers to say, hey, I've got a chance, I can make it. And you come back to uniting us together, and that's another core element of the Strawberry Moon Festival, is to bring all of our diverse Indigenous cultures, Native cultures, and nations together, because we need to unite together and a unite front, nation to nation, so that because we've got bigger issues out there that we need to deal with, but we need to deal with it as Native people of Turtle Island. No matter if you're Anishinaabe or if you're Mohawk, or we need to come together. And I find that music or festivals like this can bring us all together.
Just because I didn't perhaps introduce you properly. Why don't you just briefly explain, what your who you are and how you how you got involved in this and was able to do this. I mean, where are you from? Where do you call home?
Well, home is, in the sense of physically home, I was raised in St. Catharines.
Okay.
But my mom is both Mi'kmaq and Abenaki. So Anishinaabe from Kitigan ZB. So my grandmother, she was Mi'kmaq. My grandfather was Abenaki. My father is white and was adopted by the Six Nations on the U.S. side when I was probably about 8 or 9. So my background is radio, television, and film. So my parents were both in the radio and television industry. And my parents actually helped build 100.3 FM on Six Nations. And so all of the equipment that we had at the radio station, which was CHOW Radio in Welland, and eventually my mother and I were the first Indigenous people, not even women, but Indigenous people in all of Canada to receive 2 broadcast licenses from the CRTC. And our radio station was called Spirit 91.7 to give our people a voice, and also with a station at Six Nations. So that's my background, is radio, television, film, putting on festivals, and really trying to help our Indigenous artists.
Well, is there anybody specifically with you being able to, bring, a native event back to Art Park. Is there anybody, any of the powers that be at Art Park? Is there anybody specifically that you have to acknowledge that was willing to hear you out and help this happen?
Yes. The artistic director, Sonia, I don't know how many times I've knocked on her door, called her up and said, "What about this year? What about this year?" So she has heard my voice and knocking and coming down. Like I said, I brought Alan Jameson down with me. I went down with Gary Parker. I had Tim Johnson on the phone with me when I walked in her office. And finally this year, she calls me up only a few months ago. She says, "So, do you think you could put a festival together in 2 months?" And I was like, I was thinking about all the things. I have like a whole Indigenous month because our company, Keki Kedanix, we put on Celebration of Nations. We do a lot of different Indigenous events to help educate. And the month of June is Indigenous month in Canada. So I kind of hesitated, but then I took a deep breath. I said, you know what?
This might be the shot, right?
Like the president. We've got to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is our mission. This is the goal. We have to be out there. So I said, yes. So it's exciting.
Let's give the breakdown. This give the exact times and website,
sure.
Everything. Go ahead and give me all the critical info.
All right. Well, 3:00 doors open. We have over 20 different Indigenous Native vendors. Big shout out to the Native Guild that are coming out, Artist Guild. And Mary Jacobs, she's put a great team together. So we have a major array of vendors that will be coming out, food, so people can really sort of discover and, look at some of the great art that we make. But at 3:30, that's when we're going to start the celebrations. And both Elder Alan Jameson and Neil Patterson from Tuscarora will just do the welcome to everybody. We'll have a song by Franklin McNaughton, and Jordan Smith will lead into a welcome song and possibly a round dance. You know how as soon as the drums start, we'll start dancing. But I'm excited this year because the Social Dance Club at Tuscarora Indian School will also be performing. I think there's probably about, they just started this not too long ago, so they're really just starting to get into this dance. I think Kahela was telling me it's only been a few, like maybe 2 or 3 years. So they'll be also dancing and singing for us. We have the Iroquois marching band that will be also there. But then we segue right into some dance workshops. And you know how many people may not understand the difference between all the different dances and why we dance these certain dances traditionally and culturally, because a lot of people see them at powwows, but to understand the history behind some of them,
exactly,
and from what nation they may be, and to find out a little bit more about why we dance these certain dances. So we're going to have an array, like from hoop dancing. We have Nikki Shawana. I don't know if anyone's seen her, but she is an incredible hoop dancer. She's Anishinaabe. She'll be coming in from 6 to do that. And then we also have fancy dancers, the grass dance, and of course, the smoke dance. Everybody loves electrifying, exhilarating smoke dance.
Mm-hmm.
Do you dance?
No.
So I can't reel you in?
No, you really can't. I used to sing, but I was never really much to dance, but
okay. So anyway, so that will be, we'll also have a smoke dance competition. It's free to register. You just need to register. We have prizes. I think it's $350 for the first prize, $250 and $150. Mm-hmm. And the Tribe Called Red has invited the first prize winner, women and men, to come up on stage at 10:30 to dance with them in their closing songs. So that's pretty exciting.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds great. And we're you're gonna hook up with me, and I'm gonna try to offer a few tickets through the week, through Facebook and a few, some of my other outreach. But we'll get a few people, and we'll connect up a few people between this show and your show. So we'll plan on that as well. I look forward to it. This sounds like a good time, and look, and anything I can do to help for this show and future shows, keep me in mind, and we'll work together.
Well, I'm looking forward to working with you, and as I would say in my language, Chimigwich. So now
And we say
for
Yahweh,
inviting me, and
Well,
I look forward to seeing you and working with you.
That sounds good. Okay, Strawberry Moon Festival. That's this Saturday. Doors open at 3 p.m. at the Art Park Amphitheater in Lewiston, New York. So if you're looking for plans for this weekend, this would be one of those things to do. So you can website and how do people order tickets?
Okay, so you artpark.net
Okay.
/events/Strawberry Moon Festival.
Okay.
It's all up there. So if you just sort of Google Strawberry Moon Festival at Art Park. Tickets, they're $28, so they're pretty inexpensive. For children, 12 and under, free.
Awesome.
So it is a family event. I know. So, so we look forward to seeing it.
All right, sounds
possible.
great. We look forward to it.
Yeah.
It's always great to see these events come together, and for you to have pulled this off after a 40-year absence, this is tremendous. So congratulations on that, and we'll offer some congrats after the show as well. Thank you for connecting up with me and allowing me to be of assistance. It's great to be a part of this thing. So we'll see you on Saturday.
All right, take care.
All right.
Honor.
All right, that's Michelle Elise Burnett. She's produced this event at Art Park, the amphitheater, this Saturday. That would be the 22nd, June 22nd, and doors open at 3 p.m. So if you're looking for something to do, look up. If you just search Strawberry Moon Festival in Art Park, you'll pull all the information up. We'll go out with a little bit of a Tribe Called Red, and we'll come back. And I got a few other things to talk about. We'll hit those up when we come back. This is John Kane. This is Let's Talk Native.
Hey, put the knife down. Put the knife down. Put the knife down.
The family of a woodcarver shot to death by a Seattle police officer says that an autopsy shows he was not facing the officer. Officer Ian Burke shot and killed John T. Williams in August. Williams' family tells our newspaper partner, the Seattle Times, he suffered 4 gunshot wounds on the right side of his body. The Seattle Police Department's Firearms Review Board completed a confidential inquiry Monday to determine if that shooting was justified, and that review has now been passed on to the police chief. Yes.
We're waiting to hear more about what led to a deadly shooting in a busy part of downtown Seattle tonight. We know a man was shot and killed near the intersection of Bourne Avenue and Howard Street. We also know it was a Seattle police officer who pulled the trigger. John Hoppersmith picks it up from there.
Seattle police are investigating whether the shooting of woodcarver John T. Williams was justified. But in the minds of those who led a memorial tonight at the place he died, it's clear what happened.
Hey, put the knife down. Put the knife down. Put the knife
The Seattle police officer who shot and killed Native American woodcarver John T. Williams in August has turned in his gun and badge. Police sources tell Q13 Fox News the department's Firearms Review Board reached a preliminary finding that Officer Ian Burke was not justified in opening fire that day. Amy Allen has more.
Hey, put the knife down. Put the knife down. Put the knife down. A woman crossing the street is visibly shaken by the shots. After the woman walks out of frame, we hear a female voice say something to the officer. It's garbled. It sounds like she's asking, what did you do that for? Officer Burke responds,
Man, he had a knife and he wouldn't drop it.
Just kind of didn't seem right, you know. I understand that he got shot 4 times, and it just, to me, it seemed a little excessive.
One witness we spoke with said he never saw a knife, but the victim was not acting in a threatening way.
He was murdered for no reason. This man was disabled. He was deaf in one ear, and he never harmed his soul.
But Williams supporters say the video proves that they believe that it was an unprovoked shooting, a harmless woodcarver.
I think that this was a murder.
Ever justice done for John T. Williams.
He had problems, but you know what? There was no reason to take a gun out and kill that man that way. There was no knife. I'm standing right there. I can see the dude.
No, I am right. All right, thanks for coming back. My mic is on. I want to look before we get started. Let me go ahead and thank my sponsor. I think Let's Talk Native sponsors Ross and Holly John and the RJE family of businesses. Eric Whitney, RW Enterprises. I want to silently, I guess. How do you silently thank somebody? But I want to thank the sponsors who remain anonymous, I guess, and of course those of you who, on occasion, drop a check in the mail. I appreciate that. We could use a few more. As you can see, we are trying to upgrade. We've added this monitor to our backdrop, and we're going to try to do some more things as we go forward. We're hoping we can by having the flat screen in back, we can offer some more, perhaps some images as we're talking about various subjects, perhaps put some other graphics up and that kind of thing. So we're still working that out. We've got some connectivity issues that we're starting to sort out, but this is what we're trying to do to improve the product that we're doing here. I want to thank those of you who allow that, who help us make that happen. Again, I can't say enough about the support, especially from RJE, Ross and Holly John. They are my biggest sponsor, and of course they're also my landlord. This is where we're located on one of Ross and Holly's facilities. So really grateful to them for supporting what we do here. But I also want to thank those of you who share the show. Not the least of which is my wife, who shares the Facebook live stream on a bunch of group pages. I want to thank those of you who have group pages that allow us to share our show on your pages. Look, we address issues here that are not often addressed, and we do it in a way that sometimes can come across as confrontational. I realize that. I get that. But I don't know how, other than being kind of in your face, that we can do this stuff. I talk about a lot of issues, the mascot issues. In case you're wondering, what shirt do I have on? It looks like a Washington Redskins shirt. It's not. It is it's a Caucasian shirt, and I'll show you. All right, so there you have it. I had my mock of the Cleveland baseball team, that Caucasian shirt on the other day, and that drew some attention. I will say, when I'm wearing these shirts and I'm walking through New York, I think the people who have the hardest time understanding what I'm doing are black people. When I pass people on the street and some black guy looks at me and I got a Caucasian shirt on, they don't know if I'm like, maybe this is that whole thing where white people think when they put us on their football helmets, they really think that they're honoring us when we aren't. I mean, but it's kind of a funny situation. I see people struggle with trying to wrap their heads around me mocking this, the sports industry, who has taken on this, who decided that we should be reduced to mascots. And of course, that's one of the other issues I talk quite a bit about here. Couple of things. As I mentioned while Michelle was on, I do have Jeff Doreen and Laura Coogee joining me at the end of the month in New York at the Brooklyn Commons. That's going to be Thursday, June 27th. They're going to be performing. Laura does spoken word pieces mostly from her book, which I happen to have here, No Rainbow. And Jeff plays a backup. It gives her some accompaniment with his guitar while she does her spoken word performance, and then she sings and plays a little bit of instrumentation to back Jeff up when he's doing Beatles tunes in Mohawk. So they're going to join us. It is a unique experience to watch these guys work together, and it is a unique form of entertainment. So again, my hats off to these guys for doing what they do, and I look forward to having them back in New York. It'll be Jeff's third time joining me in New York, Laura's second time, and I look forward to hosting them at the Brooklyn Commons, 388 Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. That's going to be a 7 p.m. Showtime start at the Brooklyn Commons in Brooklyn, New York. So there's that. Hey, this Sunday I'm heading out to Pittsburgh. I'm a part of a conference that addresses the shared experiences of Black people and Native people. And I'm going to talk about the doctrine of Christian discovery there, because that is one of those things that binds us together. Not in a good way, because it was the churches that by issuing these papal bulls encouraged slavery, encouraged genocide, and so much more. So I'm going to talk about that. I'll be out. This is a Saturday Sunday thing. I think they do a reception on Friday, but this is mostly a Saturday Sunday thing. I'll be going out on Sunday to participate in that. I'm also, the following weekend, we're going to be part of the Poor People's campaign. Ross, John, and I will be heading up to Potsdam, New York, to again, we're also going to talk about the imposition of poverty on our people and how it starts with the doctrine of discovery. So we'll be addressing that, and that. So I'll have more information as that draws closer. That'll be on. Let me see. I think that's on the 29th. So that's a Saturday, the last Saturday of the month. So, all right, a couple of things that I wanted to hit. Again, I appreciate Michelle coming on and talking not just about the event up at Art Park, but just the whole idea of trying to get Native musicians and our contributions to what some will call American music, but our contributions to the music industry, and I thank her for her work on that. But a couple of things. Look, I don't spend a whole lot of time talking about Donald Trump on this show. Let's be clear. I think he's an ass. And one of the things that I keep hearing, I was listening to NPR today, and they had some Democratic operatives on who were talking about what the Democrats have to do to beat Donald Trump, and of course they're all packed in behind Joe Biden, but. And it sounds a lot like when Hillary ran, back in 2016. But one of the things that I find disturbing is when I hear anybody in the media, whether it's these talking heads on radio or whether it's the 24/7 news cycle, and I'm not just talking Fox News, because this is on even on MSNBC and CNN. Every time I hear somebody talk about what a genius Donald Trump is. Look, can we stop that now? He is not a media genius. He is not a Twitter genius. This is a guy who can't even speak a complete sentence, for crying out loud. He's not a reality TV genius. He is not an art of the deal genius. This guy is like serendipitously. Again, he reminds me of a movie I saw years ago starring Peter Sellers called Being There, where there's this moron that everybody thinks is a genius. And that's exactly what you have in Donald Trump. And I say that because we see this in Indian country or native territories as well, where people get promoted as if they are the reincarnation of, I don't know, the Ganawida or whoever. I mean, look, we have struggled in the last, I won't say 500 years, because it took a while before Europeans really started banging on our doorsteps. But we have struggled. We have struggled, and the thing that we struggle most with, and the reason I talk about this so much, it has to do with our identity. And I got to say, the reason I talk about identity so much is because it is the single most important part of who we are, especially as it relates to our future. Because if our identity continues to be unraveled and we continue to submit to assimilation, and when we talk about assimilation, we're talking about all of the things that imperialism, colonialism, capitalism has done, not just to us, but has done to the entire world, including climate change. And if we don't start carving out our own distinction and making sure that, no, we're not going to vote in your elections, we're not going to run for your offices, we're not going to play that game. I mean, part of my criticisms to somebody like Mark Charles talking about the doctrine of Christian discovery is that he cites this as if that's what we should be using for white guilt to be treated better. I don't want to be treated better as an American. I want people to understand that we are distinct and that we have the right to assert that distinction. I mean, I get a kick when I hear people criticize, the unity flag behind me. Oh yeah, we all know what that means. No, you don't. And yet, when I hear people criticize that, and yet I see that American flag flying everywhere on our territory. We're going to do veterans powwows because we're going to celebrate how many of our people fought to advance the U.S. military interest, oppressing other people. And look, I know World War II is supposed to be considered sacrilege, but the truth be told, the United States was overly aggressive there too. I mean, and I've talked about dropping atomic bombs on a small island country like Japan, and now the United States wants to stand as the moral authority over over nuclear weapons. I mean, so when we talk about there's so much bravery of our guys enlisting in the armed forces, look, if you're gonna join the biggest bully on the planet, I'm sorry, I don't see it the same way. But this cuts to some of this identity issue. The more that we place ourselves in their service or in their systems. Look, I'm not asking for us to live, in isolation. I would never suggest that. But just because I'm wearing blue jeans and a T-shirt doesn't mean that I'm them. I've talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I am not fighting for civil rights. I'll support others who are, but I'm not fighting for our civil rights within the American Constitution or even within American society. That's not what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for our distinction. I'm fighting for our humanity, our human rights, our right that was bestowed by creation, not by God, or not by some other name for God, but by the very fact that if the creation provided us the opportunity, and of course all of life the opportunity to do the right thing. Of course we have the power of choice. So we see that that most of the world is obsessed with killing each other. I mean, we see it in the constant state of war. That so many places, and especially the United States, who has 700 military bases in over 70 countries around the world. So don't tell me about how brave it is to join that team. Look, you want to talk about bravery? I'll talk about the people who stand up to that. Talk to me about the people who have stood up to the United States. Who will stand up to the police. I mean, that Tribe Called Red song. I mean, it just gives you an example. Native people, as a proportion of our population, we experience death by cop at a higher rate than anybody else in the United States. We've experienced death by the U.S. military at a rate that essentially, took us, wiped out our population to the tune of 95%. So no, I'm not going to enlist in their armed forces. I'm not going to throw my body into their service. So what? I could do it to Vietnamese, or I could do it to Afghanis, or I can do it to Iraqis, or who knows, maybe Iranians next. No, I'm not going to be a part of that. I'll stand. Look, one of my heroes is Muhammad Ali, the man who had the guts to risk everything that he'd worked for his whole life for. A world boxing champion, heavyweight champion of the world. He risked that to say, no, I'm not going to go kill the yellow man for the white man who stole this land from the red man. I mean, he referred to those Vietnamese. He goes, why would I want to go kill those little black babies? Because those people were just as dark as he was. He goes, why would I want to go there and kill those little black babies? He says, you my enemy, you my opposer. That's what Muhammad Ali said. But I don't hear a whole lot of Native people say that. No, I see people saying, oh, yeah, go out and vote Democrats. Go out and vote for Hillary Clinton. Go run for Congress. Go run for governor. Go run for president. And all that is assimilation. So when I'm talking about identity, this is the reason. Because just as I said on Tanzina Vega's show, The Takeaway, when she says, why would I want to assert my distinct citizenship, that I'm not a U.S. citizen? Because if we don't, we disappear. We fade away. Look, I am really troubled. I mean, I'm going to be 60 years old this year. I got to tell you, I thought we'd be farther along. I mean, and I don't mean that, I don't want to say that I thought I would accomplish more. I mean, as a people. Oh, we've made some money. We made some money in cigarettes. We made some money in gas. We made some money in gambling. But we keep going farther into their system. We haven't taken a stand on income tax. So, I mean, again, it's bizarre to me that even if you're an elected official of the Seneca Nation or any of these nations, if you're elected or even if you're traditional and you're getting paid for that position, the IRS is taking 30% of your income, or they're assessing it to come back at you later. And you know what they're going to do with that 30% of your income? They're funding their war machine. The biggest expenditure in the U.S. budget is military. So that's what we're supporting when we pay taxes. Of course, I don't pay taxes. I'll tell you that right now. I know people don't believe it, but I don't. But I got to tell you, we've got to stand on something, folks. We just can't keep, look, what the old Mike and the Mechanics song says, pledge allegiance to the flag, whatever flag they offer. Never tell them how you really feel. Look, I understand going along to get along so you can live to fight another day. But if we're not kind of, treading water to fight for another day, if we're only doing that to fill up our wallets, then we're no different than anybody else out there. And I'll tell you, somebody better take a stand. Because this isn't just about, state or federal policy to try to make changes to now make changes to the damage they've already done to the planet in terms of climate change. And I say damage to the planet. What they've done is they've altered the planet that's going to make it more unlivable for people and many other species. But I'll tell you, who are the people who are going to be hurt the most by climate change? The poorest people on the planet. The people who, and now the lakefront and the ocean front, houses on stilts, and look, those people could lose the house. Hell, that's probably not even their only home. But when you're talking about people living in the low-lying areas of Louisiana or South Carolina, hell, when Superstorm Sandy came up the coast and even impacted in the New York City area, it was the poorest people who were the most adversely affected. Look, I live here in Seneca territory. We are probably, and in fact, there's been some climatologists who have suggested that Buffalo may be one of the more desirable regions of, fresh water, but we're elevated off the lake, at least, Western New York here. We're probably in a great position to survive some of the ill effects of climate change. Doesn't mean we're not going to have fierce weather, But I'm concerned. I'm concerned about what everybody just keeps going along with, including Native people. Look, for all the money that we've made in gas, gaming, and cigarettes, we are not hedging our bets. No, I appreciate the ag projects, and I know the Seneca Nation has a bit of an ag project, and others have talked about food sovereignty. But we're not going at it aggressively enough. And it's not to again condemn those projects, but those projects aren't big enough, and there aren't enough of us participating in this kind of thing. But I can't get away from the identity issue, because if we're going to play this pretend that we're dual citizens, that we're both, Gunyagahaga and Americans, or we're, Gunyagahaga and Canadians, or we're Onundawaga and Americans, and we're Onundawaga and Canadians. Look, they don't recognize that. So why would we want to embrace that? And there's no upside for us. I mean, the U.S. and Canada can't deny, frankly, they can't deny us their constitutional rights. I mean, they do, but they legally can't. But that's not what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for a distinction. I mean, I bring up the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples only because it shows how starkly the United States and Canada violate it. That's why I bring it up. And not only do they violate this declaration, but Article 43 of the Declaration says this is the minimum standard. This isn't even this isn't what Native people need for prosperity. It says it very clear. This is the minimum standard for survival and dignity. And it ain't getting it done. It ain't getting it done. Look, we've got missing and murdered Indigenous women issues. We've got the highest incidence of substance abuse, suicide. We have the highest unemployment rates, the highest poverty levels. And that's by design, folks. And if you think, look, I get it. The people who are telling us to go out and vote, and the people who muster up the support from white people to run for office, they're not the average person living on a native territory. They're not the ones who've been impoverished. The Mark Charleses in the world didn't live in poverty, or the Deborah Hollands, or the Sharice Davids, or the Paulette Jordans, or no, they didn't. Or even the Winona LaDukes, who ran as the vice president for the Green Party. She pulls in $15,000 for a speaking engagement. I got to tell you, it isn't about the superstar, and it's not about me either. Look, I put this stuff out there because I think we all need to have this conversation. We all need to take a firmer stand. I mean, it's insane to me that I live here in Seneca territory, and look, and I respect the views that the Senecas hold on how they live here, but consider the fact that here in Seneca territory, there's the New York State Thruway that runs through, commerce existing every single day, unfettered, running right through Seneca territory. There is CSX railway running through, trains every single day, bomb trains carrying everything from hazardous material to containers every single day, running through, completely unfettered. And nobody checks in. The Seneca Nation doesn't make anything off that. Seneca people don't make anything off of that. There's national fuel lines. There's national grid lines. You go down to the Allegheny, you've got you also have Interstate 86. So you have the Thruway, Interstate 90. You got all of these, 5 and 20, these U.S. routes running through territories. All of this commerce going through Seneca territory, and the state will still fight guys like Eric White and others for putting a truck on a road to haul a native product from a native territory to another native territory. The state will still squeeze the Seneca Nation, for 48% of their slot revenue, not 25%, 48% of the slot revenue. And the state's got nothing into this. They didn't give anything up for this, but they're gonna squeeze the Senecas, for another. They've already got $1.5 billion. They're gonna squeeze them for another $1 billion going forward. And look, there's almost nobody making noise. I'm glad the Seneca Nation is taking a stand on this, but I don't hear a whole lot of Senecas making noise. I hear more Senecas complaining that, oh, yeah, all those guys on council, they're crooks. They're all a bunch of crooks. Well, what are you doing to send a message to these guys? Half the time I hear people complaining more about, there's nothing more significant economically to the Seneca Nation than the state trying to squeeze $1 billion out of them over the next 7 years. I mean, I don't know how that's not a priority, but that's not the thing that gets everybody up in arms. As I talked last week, I talked about the Cayuga situation. Again, more fighting over money. Look, I'm glad they do some ag projects. They got a couple of gardens going, and they're doing some stuff in their longhouse. I can't call it a longhouse. Their schoolhouse. But the vast majority of Cayugas are sitting on the sideline, not stepping up. They're not going out there to take a stand. When are the people going to take a stand? When are the people going to involve themselves in their own affairs? When are their voices going to be heard? Look, I'll scream to the top of my lungs on all of these issues. But you know what? I can put a chair right here and somebody can join me. I can put another chair right there and somebody can join me. And that's just here. I mean, this is safe here. I'm not talking about going down to the thruway. We could do that too. So look, it's not all doom and gloom. This weekend we got a great event happening up at Art Park, so I hope you'll join us as we go up there to celebrate this Strawberry Moon Festival. Michelle Elise Burnett is responsible for this, and I applaud the work that she's doing. Come on out, listen to A Tribe Called Red and others, and look forward to seeing you up there. And look, it's not all doom and gloom, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of work to do. And man, I thought we'd be farther along. This is John Kane. This is Let's Talk Native. Thanks.